Hey man, let's get brutally honest from the start. You've been told that to get women, you need to be rich, good-looking, charismatic, have six-pack abs and a car that roars louder than your voice. But that's a distraction. Not that those things don't help, but they're not the root. The real science behind attraction, it's not in your wallet. It's not even in your looks. It's in your absence. The most scientifically proven way to draw women in, especially in today's hyper-stimulated attention economy, is what the world now calls the thirst trap, but not the kind you're thinking of. This isn't about shirtless selfies or seductive stares. This is about reverse psychology at the deepest biological level. This is about being so unavailable, so self-contained, so grounded in your own presence that she starts chasing not because you asked her to, but because her biology can't resist it. Let me explain why this works. Human attraction is governed by evolutionary psychology, and women have evolved to value what is scarce and high status. Now, in modern society, status isn't just wealth or looks, it's emotional scarcity. The man who doesn't need validation is a magnet. The man who doesn't chase, who doesn't beg, who doesn't fall over himself to please her, that's the man she remembers. That's the man she obsesses over. Why? Because it triggers a psychological loop in her mind called the Zeigarnik effect. Unfinished stories create obsession, and when you show interest, then pull away. When you're present, and then gone. When she feels your warmth but can't quite possess you, you become unfinished business. Her brain can't close that loop, and so she spirals. She checks your stories, she rereads your texts, she wonders what she did wrong. You've become the thirst trap, not through manipulation, but by mastering presence and withdrawal. Here's where most men fail. They try too hard. They try to prove their value instead of embodying it. They text again. They double message. They over-explain. They send good morning quotes. All of that, it's anti-scientific. It tells her subconscious, this man needs me. This man has no options. This man is lower on the hierarchy. And whether she admits it or not, her attraction dies a little with every desperate move. But when you operate from detachment, when you disappear after leaving an impression, her mind doesn't get closure, and the lack of closure creates fixation. This isn't seduction, this is neurochemistry, and it's the oldest trick in the book. Only now, backed by dopamine cycles, attention scarcity, and the science of unavailability, it's more potent than ever. The reason women fall for men who are emotionally unavailable isn't because they like to suffer, it's because their biology is programmed to chase after status uncertainty. If you're too available, her brain tags you as secured. You're no longer a mystery, you're predictable, you're conquered. But when you mix a little warmth with distance, a little interest with silence, a little presence with retreat, you confuse her system. And confusion is powerful, it creates anxiety, and anxiety spikes dopamine, and dopamine creates obsession. You're not harming her, you're simply refusing to play the clown. You're refusing to be the one who performs, and that refusal, paradoxically, makes her dance in her mind for you. Now, let me be clear, this isn't about ghosting or being cold, that's just childish. The real thirst trap is subtle. It's felt, not forced. You smile at her, make eye contact, maybe even drop a compliment, and then nothing. You go back to your business. You don't follow her around like a puppy. You don't DM her 5 minutes later. You let the silence do the seduction. You let her wonder. Because once she starts wondering, you've already won. You've bypassed the surface level, and now you're renting space in her mind. And the longer you stay silent, the louder your absence feels. Tronart studies show that the human brain assigns more value to what it struggles to attain. This is known as the effort justification principle. The more she has to work for your attention, the more she convinces herself you're worth it. If you're too easy, too nice, too compliant, she doesn't trust the value. She sees you as a man trying to win her approval. But when you offer glimpses of yourself, not the whole picture, when you show her she's not the center of your world, her ego gets involved. Now it's not just attraction, it's competition. She wants to win. She wants to prove herself. And when a woman wants to prove herself to you, you've already flipped the power dynamic. Let me give you a metaphor. A lion doesn't chase rats. It doesn't pace the savannah begging for attention. It knows what it is. It sits in the sun, powerful, unbothered, and everything around it, creatures, eyes, attention, it comes to him. Why? Because his stillness speaks louder than your noise. You want to be that lion, not because it's alpha, not because it's dominant, but because it knows itself. Women chase that kind of man, not for validation, but because he represents stability in a chaotic world. And that stability, it's the real thirst trap. She can't define it, she just knows she wants it. And the more she wants it, the less you have to do. The reverse trap works best when you have options but don't flaunt them. When you could chase but choose not to. When you could text but choose to stay silent. That level of self-restraint, it's intoxicating to a woman. Because it suggests discipline, it suggests higher purpose, it suggests that your life is full with or without her. And nothing triggers female desire more than a man who doesn't need her, but still leaves a door open, just enough for her to try and enter. That's the ultimate paradox. She doesn't want the man who worships her, she wants the man who respects her, but walks away if she doesn't reciprocate. That's confidence, and confidence is rare. Every time you text without her initiating, every time you try to fix silence with words, you're lowering your perceived value. Why? Because in her mind, the high-value man doesn't explain himself. He doesn't convince, he moves, he builds, he lives, and she either aligns or fades. The first trap isn't a trick, it's a frame. It's the unshakable internal standard that says, I am the reward, I don't chase what runs from me. And when you carry that energy, not in arrogance but in truth, she feels it, even through a screen. And when a woman feels something she doesn't understand, her curiosity grows, her emotional investment deepens, and she chases not because you asked her to, but because her emotions demanded it. Ron, so stop playing small, stop apologizing for being selective, stop shrinking yourself to fit someone else's fantasy. The most scientifically backed method to create attraction is scarcity, not fake, manipulative scarcity, but real, earned, principled detachment. Women don't want a man who begs. They don't want a man who proves. They want a man who walks, even when it hurts, who values his silence more than forced connection, who knows his worth so well that he doesn't trade it for attention. Be that man. Become the first trap, not by posing, but by positioning, not by faking, but by standing tall. And watch how she leans in, wondering why her heart skips a beat when she thinks of you. Ron Astley's break this down further, because I want you to feel the truth in your bones. The first trap isn't a gimmick, it's the psychological outcome of authentic masculine detachment. When a man stops reacting and starts observing, when he no longer needs to pursue validation from women, he becomes scarce, not just in action, but in presence. That's what sets the real ones apart. Most guys operate like vending machines. You push a button, you get a reaction. But the man who doesn't give instant emotional access, that man becomes a riddle. And women are drawn to riddles, not answers. She doesn't want you to lay it all out. She wants to unravel you, slowly, curiously. And that only happens when you build the emotional first. Not by proving yourself, but by being a fortress she can't decode on sight. Now here's where it gets raw. Women are drowning in attention. Likes, comments, fire emojis, constant DMs, it's all noise. So what happens when you don't contribute to the noise? When you remove yourself from the lineup, suddenly you're not part of the algorithm, you're different. And different is the only thing that matters in this world of sameness. When she's used to being chased, and you're the one who doesn't, who vanishes after the first spark, who doesn't follow up, who leaves her wondering if she even made an impression, you become the one she can't categorize. And that discomfort, that mystery, it rewires her dopamine patterns. She checks for you now. She wonders. She replays the moment. That's science, brother, not opinion. You don't want to be the guy she knows she can have. You want to be the one she's not sure about. That uncertainty triggers the same addictive brain chemistry that keeps people glued to slot machines. Reward unpredictability. That's the heart of the first trap. It's not about rejection, it's about scarcity plus value. If you're scarce and insecure, you're ignored. If you're scarce and valuable, you're desired. It's that simple. And value doesn't mean money. It means self-possession, direction, emotional control. The man who doesn't hand over his peace just to keep her entertained, that man is gold in a world starving for grounded masculinity. Let me hit you with the brutal truth. Most men refuse to accept. The more you text her, the more you remind her she has control. That doesn't mean ignore her forever, but it means you don't overexpose yourself. The same way a brand loses prestige when it's on clearance, your energy loses value when it's always on sale. She has to earn access to your time, to your thoughts, to your world. That's what separates a high-value man from a pleaser. The pleaser opens the gates wide. The grounded man opens the gates with intention. And when she senses that boundary, when she feels the honor of being let into your life, it hits differently. She feels chosen, not entitled. That distinction, it's the secret sauce. Ron says, with your honor of being let into your life. It hits differently. She feels chosen, not entitled. That distinction, it's the secret sauce. Ron says, and don't get it twisted. This doesn't mean you play games. Games are for boys. This is about powerful stillness, about knowing that real seduction happens in silence, in absence, in the unanswered space. Think about music. The beat only matters because of the pauses. The silence gives the rhythm meaning. Same with your presence. It's the absence that creates anticipation. And anticipation is the drug. You don't win women with a flood of attention. You win them with the right dose delivered at the right time. Anything more than that, it becomes noise. Anything less, it becomes neglect. The first trap is the perfect middle, enough to make her curious, not enough to make her complacent. Point awful plight with small. Lumpergecks never learn until it's too late. The more available you are, the less urgency she feels. Urgency drives investment. When she doesn't know when she'll hear from you again, when she isn't sure if she made the cut, when she feels that gap, she starts reaching, she starts trying, she initiates. But if she knows you're always going to text, always going to comment, always going to be there, why should she care? She doesn't have to fight for you, she doesn't have to earn you, and humans only value what they earn. So when you step back, not with bitterness, but with power, you activate that primal instinct in her, the desire to win. Too many men are afraid to be missed. They fear the silence. They fear not being remembered, so they fill the space with texts, with emojis, with follow-ups. But every time you fill the space, you rob her of the opportunity to feel your absence. And without absence, there is no craving. Without craving, there is no fire. Women need space to process their attraction. It's in the pullback that they feel the longing. So when you stop filling the silence, when you stop begging for attention, when you stop showing up uninvited, you give her room to wonder. And when she wonders, she begins to feel. And once she feels, she chases. That's how it works. Every single time. If she's not texting back, your silence is your only power. One more text won't fix it. One more hey won't change her mind. One more meme won't make her fall in love. But your complete withdrawal? That's the shock to her system. That's when her brain starts scanning for you. That's when she starts remembering all the things she didn't appreciate when you were around. And by then, you've already shifted the frame. Now she's the one seeking, the one unsure, the one who has to earn your attention again. Not because you're punishing her, but because you're protecting your value. That's the real first trap. It makes her wonder if she ever really had you in the first place. Runt me say this clearly. You are the prize, not because you say it, but because you prove it through restraint. The man who can control his need for attention, his need for validation, his need to fix the discomfort of silence, that man radiates power. That man is rare, and what's rare is valuable. She'll never tell you this directly. She'll never say, wow, I'm attracted to you because you don't text me first, but her actions will speak. Her curiosity will spike, her attention will shift, and suddenly the guy she thought she didn't want becomes the guy she can't stop thinking about. That's not game, that's gravity. You're pulling her in by standing still. So from this day forward, stop chasing women who don't reciprocate. Stop trying to be clever or funny or persistent. The most powerful man in the room is the one who doesn't need the room, who can walk away without flinching, who chooses peace over pursuit. That's the man women want. That's the man women respect, not because he denies them, but because he denies neediness. And in a world full of men offering themselves on silver platters, the man who offers nothing but his presence, then disappears, is the one who becomes unforgettable. That's the first trap. That's the secret. And once you master it, you'll never look back. Now let's talk about body language, because the first trap isn't just digital, it's physical. It's the way you walk into a room without scanning for approval. It's the way you make eye contact without flinching, and then look away as if you've already seen what you needed to. It's the way you carry stillness, not nervous energy, not overcompensation, just a calm, powerful presence. That non-verbal confidence hits harder than anything you could say. You don't smile to be liked, you don't lean in to be accepted, you exist. And your existence becomes the gravitational pull. Every gesture, every pause, every silence, it communicates that you're not here to impress. You're here because you belong. Here's where it gets deeper. The first trap operates in polarities. Masculine energy that is rooted, directed, and composed naturally creates a vacuum for feminine energy that is expressive, curious, and emotionally seeking. That's not manipulation, that's nature. But when a man gives up his polarity, when he chases, begs, validates without purpose, he becomes emotionally feminine. He abandons his center. And when he does that, he loses her attraction. She might not know why. She might say you're too nice or something's off. But what's really happening is she no longer feels your polarity. And without that polarity, there's no spark. So the first trap brings you back into your rightful energy. Stoic, grounded, unavailable unless earned. Stop thinking attraction is built through words. It's built through moments. The glance that lingers 1 second longer. The reply that comes an hour later instead of instantly. The message left on read, not to play a game, but because you have a life. Those moments become mental bookmarks. They stay in her mind. She'll replay them while brushing her teeth, while scrolling in bed, while out with friends. Why? Because uncertainty ignites curiosity, and curiosity creates hooks. Every unanswered moment becomes a puzzle piece, and as she tries to solve the puzzle, she invests more, emotionally, mentally. That's how the game flips, without you ever raising your voice. You know what kills thirst? Predictability. When you always say yes, when you're always available, when you text good morning like clockwork, you become routine. And routine doesn't trigger desire, it triggers comfort. And comfort, while necessary for long-term love, is not what ignites initial attraction. The thirst trap keeps you just out of reach, not too far that she forgets you, but not so close that she takes you for granted. It's the space where mystery lives, and in that space, a woman's imagination does all the heavy lifting. She fills in the blanks with desire. She assigns meaning to silence, and what's imagined is always more powerful than what's explained. Letting go of control. Most men panic in the silence. They want a response, a reaction, a sign, but detachment is the true power source. When you can sit in the void, when you can hold your position without forcing an outcome, you become untouchable. That's when the first trap becomes real. Not because you're manipulating her, but because you've stopped manipulating yourself. You've stopped needing constant reassurance. You've stopped building your worth around whether she likes you. You've become a man who's rooted in his own gravity, and that gravity pulls, silently, relentlessly, powerfully. Let's clear something up right now. Women do not want emotionally unavailable men. They want emotionally disciplined men. There's a difference. Being cold, rude, or distant isn't attractive. Being composed, centered, and self-respecting is. The first trap works because it doesn't chase attention, it draws it in. You're not ignoring her out of bitterness. You're valuing your peace more than you value the dopamine hit of her reply. And she can feel that difference. One repels, the other intrigues. So when you choose yourself not as a tactic, but as a lifestyle, you become rare. And in a world of predictable, needy energy, rarity is the ultimate attraction. And here's something you probably haven't heard before. Even committed women still crave the thirst trap energy. Not because they want to be neglected, but because they want to feel that edge, that tension that keeps them engaged. The moment you become emotionally dependent, even in a relationship, you stop being attractive. Why? Because you're no longer free. The first trap is not about absence, it's about independence, about showing her consistently that your world continues whether she claps or not, and that energy, even in love, keeps the fire alive. You don't owe her constant access, you owe her your truth, and if she respects it, she'll rise to meet it. Men ask, how do I make her chase? Wrong question. The better question is, how do I stop chasing what doesn't serve me? Because once you stop chasing, once you pull your energy back, the thirst trap activates on its own. It's not something you turn on, it's something you become. And when you become it, the chasing flips naturally. She senses your detachment, your emotional independence, your lack of neediness, and suddenly her own ego gets involved. Why isn't he texting? Did I do something wrong? Has he moved on? And now she becomes the one overanalyzing. That reversal, that's the trap. Set by your silence, maintained by your discipline. Ron Rakir, you want to know what really makes a woman obsessed? The thought of you, not the reality. The version she builds in her head. The man who is just mysterious enough to keep her guessing, just confident enough to keep her watching, just unavailable enough to keep her chasing. When you're too available, she doesn't fantasize. There's nothing to imagine, no unknowns to explore. But when you leave the story half-written, when you walk away mid-scene, when you vanish after a great moment, you become a mental cliffhanger. She can't let go, because the mind hates unfinished business, and the first trap leaves everything unfinished on purpose. So stop flooding her inbox, stop showing up in her comments, stop handing her your power on a plate. Go dark, go quiet, go internal, work on your body, work on your money, work on your mission, Because when you start becoming the man who doesn't need attention to feel valid, you start radiating something magnetic. It's not arrogance, it's not cockiness, it's certainty. And that certainty pulls her in harder than any compliment or text ever could. She won't even understand why she's thinking about you at midnight, why she keeps checking your profile, why she starts reacting to your silence, but you'll know, because you set the trap, and she walked straight into it. Prompt as to you have to understand that desire is built in the shadows, not in the spotlight. It's what she doesn't know about you that makes her want to know more. It's the space you leave behind, the unanswered questions, the self-restraint you exercise that signals depth. When she senses that there's more to you than you're revealing, her mind becomes obsessed with uncovering it. This is where the first trap becomes a psychological loop, because she starts feeding her own fantasy. You're not doing anything, you're not trying, you're just being, but the silence you leave behind becomes a canvas for her imagination. And in that painting, you're always more desirable than any man trying too hard to win her over. Now, don't confuse this with manipulation. A first trap is not about deception, it's about contrast. In a world full of men seeking approval, your refusal to do so becomes radical. Your calm becomes unnerving. Your peace becomes provocative. You don't need to say a word. Just showing up, being present, and not asking for attention speaks louder than the loudest pickup line. She'll start watching you more closely, testing you, seeing if this grounded confidence is real or just an act. And if you stay centered, if you don't flinch, now you've made impact. Now she's not just intrigued, she's hooked. The first trap works because women are biologically wired to respond to men who are higher value, not flashy, not arrogant, stable, solid, certain. When you're not emotionally reactive, when you're not seeking her approval, when you're moving forward with your purpose, whether she notices or not, you rise in her perception. She doesn't even realize it, but it happens. It's science. It's evolutionary psychology. The man who doesn't chase is the man who has options, and women are designed to chase the man who has options, not because of ego, but because of security. If other women want you, you must be worth something. And if you don't need her, she needs to understand why. Ronzo, it's funny how the less you care, the more powerful you become. Not in a careless way, but in a liberated way. When you no longer need her reply, her validation, her attention, you walk differently, you talk differently, your energy changes. You don't check your phone every 5 minutes. You don't write and delete messages in your notes app. You don't refresh her story like your life depends on it. You just live. And in doing so, you become the most attractive version of yourself, not just to her, but to everyone. Because people can sense a man who's in his own orbit, and women especially want to feel gravity, not desperation. Here's something most guys never learn. The more you give, the less she values it, unless it's earned. When you give her time, attention, energy, without her doing anything to deserve it, you're not being generous, you're being desperate, and deep down she knows it. But when you pull back, when you withhold, not out of spite, but out of self-respect, she suddenly becomes aware of your value. She starts asking herself, what do I need to do to earn his focus? And that shift is everything. Because now she's investing, now she's chasing, now you become the standard. And here's where the first trap gets psychological. It forces her to confront her own ego. If she's used to men falling over themselves to get her attention, and suddenly you're not playing the game, her first reaction won't be desire, it'll be confusion. Then it'll turn into doubt. Did I lose it? Is he not into me? Why isn't he trying? That internal crisis doesn't feel good, but it does create motion, and motion leads to curiosity. Curiosity leads to effort. Effort leads to desire. That's why silence, mystery, detachment all work better than anything you could ever say in a text, because they reach her on a primal level, not emotional, not rational, but instinctual. Look around. Most men today are starving for attention. They overcompensate, they overshare, they overcommit, and it's exhausting to women. Why? Because feminine energy wants to receive, not be overwhelmed. So when you stop overexerting, when you withhold intentionally, she feels relief. You're not crowding her. You're not pressuring her. You're not suffocating her with need. You're giving her space to miss you, to wonder, to lean in. And in that space, her attraction builds. It's like watching steam rise from still water. You don't do anything. You just create the right environment and let nature do the rest. The first trap is not for the faint of heart. It requires patience, discipline, detachment. You might not see results right away. You might feel the urge to break silence, to check in, to prove something. Don't. That impulse is the old you, the weak you. The you who needed constant connection to feel worthy. The new you, the man becoming unshakable, knows that silence is the message, that distance is the strategy, and when she starts noticing, when she reaches out, when she tries to re-engage, you don't gloat, you don't over-celebrate, you respond with calm, grounded energy, as if it was inevitable, because it was. You don't win by being louder, you win by being still. You don't win by chasing, you win by standing still while everything else runs in circles. The first trap is not about ego, it's about power. The power of restraint, the power of knowing you could reach out, but choosing not to. The power of letting her come to you, not because she has to, but because she wants to. That power isn't taught, it's cultivated. And once you feel it, once you see how much more effective it is than any line, game, or tactic, you'll never go back to begging. You'll never go back to chasing, because you'll know you never had to. So the next time you're tempted to send that text, post that story, show her you're still around, pause, ask yourself, what am I really doing this for? If the answer is validation, stop, go quiet, go dark, go inward, build, create, elevate, and let the silence speak on your behalf. Because the first trap only works when you let go, when you stop reaching and start attracting, when you stop seeking and start becoming. You don't have to chase, you don't have to convince, you don't even have to explain. You just have to be so whole within yourself that your absence becomes louder than any presence she's ever known. That's the game, that's the science, that's the trap.